I once asked a monk why he lived alone on a mountain. He said, "I do not live alone. I live with myself. When I was in the city, surrounded by thousands of people, that is when I was alone." Now that stopped me cold, because you see, we have been taught something very strange. We have been taught that solitude is loneliness, that being by yourself means you are isolated, cut off, somehow deficient. We are told that the healthy person is the social person, the one who can mingle easily, who has many friends, who never runs out of things to say at parties. But what if that is backwards? What if the person who needs constant company, who cannot stand an hour alone with their own thoughts, who fills every silence with chatter and every empty moment with distraction, what if that person is actually the lonely one? You see, there is something happening to people who wake up. And by waking up, I do not mean having a nice spiritual idea or reading a few books about consciousness. I mean really waking up. That moment when you suddenly see that most of what people do is performance. They are acting out roles, repeating phrases they heard somewhere else, moving through life like sleepwalkers who are very busy but do not know where they are going. When you wake up to this, when you really see it, something very curious happens. You find that you can no longer be around too many people, not because you suddenly hate humanity, not because you think you are better than everyone else, but because your nervous system simply cannot tolerate it anymore. Let me explain what I mean. Imagine you are at a party. There are 30 people in the room. Everyone is talking, laughing, telling stories. On the surface, it all looks very pleasant. But when you are awake, you see something else happening beneath the surface. You see that most of these conversations are not really conversations at all. They are performances. One person is performing their success. Look at me, I am doing well. Another is performing their opinions. Let me tell you what I think about this and that. Another is performing their humor. See how clever I am, how witty. Another is performing their suffering. Listen to how hard my life is, how much I struggle. And everyone is so busy performing that nobody is actually present. Nobody is really listening to anyone else. They are all just waiting for their turn to speak, preparing their next line, making sure their mask is firmly in place. Now, when you are asleep yourself, you could participate in this game without any problem. You had your own performance ready, you knew your lines, you could put on your mask and play along. But the moment you wake up, the moment you see what is really happening, you cannot do it anymore. It is like watching a play and suddenly realizing that you are one of the actors. And once you know you are acting, you cannot pretend that it is real. You cannot force yourself to believe in the role anymore. Your whole body rebels against it. This is why awakened people find crowds exhausting. Not because crowds are inherently bad, but because maintaining consciousness in the middle of unconsciousness requires tremendous energy. You have to constantly filter out the projections. You have to hold your center while everyone around you is scattered. You have to remain clear while swimming in a sea of confusion. Think of it this way. Imagine you are trying to listen to a beautiful piece of music, but you are sitting in a room where 30 radios are playing 30 different stations at once. The static, the noise, the conflicting sounds, they drown out the music. They make it impossible to hear what you came to hear. This is what being in a crowd feels like for someone who is awakened. Everyone around them is broadcasting their fears, their desires, their judgments, their performances. And all of this noise makes it almost impossible to hear their own inner music, to stay connected to their own center, to remain conscious. But here is what nobody tells you. When you are around unconscious people, you do not just hear their noise, you actually absorb it. Your system picks up on their anxiety, their restlessness, their hidden pain. You walk into a room feeling perfectly fine and you leave feeling drained, irritable, inexplicably sad. And you do not even know that what you are feeling is not yours. This is what makes crowds so dangerous for awakened people. They are like sponges soaking up the emotional weather of everyone around them. And most of this weather is stormy. Most people are walking around carrying tremendous amounts of unconscious material. Anger and fear and shame they have never looked at, never acknowledged. And all of this gets projected outward into the environment like invisible radiation. The awakened person feels all of it. Not because they want to, not because they are trying to be some kind of psychic, but because consciousness is sensitive. When you wake up, you become aware of things that sleeping people do not notice. You feel the currents beneath the surface. You sense what is not being said. You pick up on the discomfort that everyone is pretending is not there. And this is exhausting beyond measure. Because you are doing work that nobody else sees or appreciates. You are processing material that is not even yours. You are holding space for truth in environments where everyone has agreed to pretend. I remember years ago, I would go to gatherings, and afterwards I would feel completely depleted. Not tired in a physical way, but drained in some deeper way I could not quite name. I would need days to recover, to feel like myself again. And I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I was weak, or antisocial, or broken in some way. But then I understood there was nothing wrong with me. I was simply awake in a room full of sleeping people. And staying awake required all my energy. Now compare this to being alone. When you are truly alone, when there is no one else's performance to witness, no one else's projections to absorb, no one else's expectations to meet, something extraordinary happens. You can finally hear yourself think. You can finally feel your own feelings without interference. You can finally rest. This is what that monk on the mountain understood. In solitude, he was not alone at all. He was with himself, really with himself, not the performing self, not the social self, but the actual living consciousness that he was. And in the city, surrounded by thousands of people, he was completely about, because none of those people were really present. They were all lost in their own performances, their own games, their own unconsciousness. So even though he was physically surrounded, there was nobody actually there to meet him. No consciousness meeting consciousness. Just masks looking at other masks. Do you see the difference? Real connection happens when consciousness meets consciousness. When two people drop their masks and see each other clearly. But this almost never happens in crowds. In crowds, everyone is too busy performing to actually be present. So the awakened person discovers that they are less lonely in solitude than they are in company. Because in solitude, at least they have themselves. And that is more real, more nourishing, more satisfying than 1,000 superficial interactions with people who are not really there. But let me be very clear about something. This is not antisocial behavior. This is not running away from life. This is not some kind of weakness or failure to adjust. This is actually a sign of health, a sign that you value truth over comfort, consciousness over belonging, authenticity over approval. The sick person is not the one who withdraws from unconscious environments. The sick person is the one who stays in those environments and slowly dies inside, killing their own consciousness to fit in, betraying their own awareness to be accepted. Think about a plant. If you put a plant in a dark room, it will bend and stretch toward any source of light. It is not being dramatic or antisocial. It is simply following its nature, which is to grow toward light. And if there is no light in that room, the plant will eventually wither. You are like that plant. Your consciousness is like that light. And when you find yourself in environments where consciousness is absent, where everyone is asleep, where performance has replaced presence, your soul will naturally pull you away. Not because you are running away, but because you are following your deepest nature, which is to grow toward wakefulness. This is why you cannot be around too many people anymore. Your system knows something your mind has not quite accepted yet. It knows that staying in unconscious environments will kill your consciousness. It knows that absorbing everyone else's emotional weather will make you lose contact with your own inner climate. It knows that performing roles will cause you to forget who you actually are. So it withdraws. And this withdrawal is not a problem to be fixed. It is wisdom to be honored. Now, does this mean you should become a hermit and never speak to another human being? Of course not. But it does mean you need to be very selective about who you spend time with and how much time you spend with them. Quality over quantity. One real conversation with one conscious person is worth more than 100 superficial interactions with sleeping people. 1 hour of genuine presence is more nourishing than a month of performances. And here is something beautiful that happens when you honor this need for solitude. You stop being desperate for connection. You stop settling for performances because you cannot bear to be alone. You stop sacrificing your consciousness just to have company. Instead, you become comfortable with yourself, really comfortable. You discover that your own presence is actually quite pleasant. You find that silence is not empty but full. You realize that being alone does not mean being lonely. And from this place of genuine self-sufficiency, if you choose to connect with others, you connect differently. You are not needy. You are not looking for them to fill some void in you. You are not trying to escape yourself. You are simply meeting them from a place of fullness, offering your presence without demanding that they be different than they are. This is the paradox. The less you need people, the more genuine your connections become. The more comfortable you are alone. The more present you can be with others. The more you honor your need for solitude, the more you have to give when you do engage. But you must go through the withdrawal first. You must spend time alone, real time, not just an hour here and there, but days, weeks, months if necessary. Time where you are not taking in anyone else's material, not absorbing anyone else's projections, not performing any roles. In this solitude you will discover something that you have been searching for your whole life. You will discover that you are already complete, that you do not need external validation or approval or company to be whole, that your own consciousness, your own presence, your own being is enough. And once you know this, really know it, not as an idea but as a felt experience, you become free. Free to engage or not engage. Free to connect or not connect. Free to be with people or to be alone. Because your well-being no longer depends on what others think or do or say. This is what the monk on the mountain had discovered. He was not running away from people. He was running toward himself. And in finding himself, he found something so rich, so satisfying, so complete, that the noise and chaos of the city held no appeal. He could go back to the city if he chose. He could engage with people if he wished. But he would do so from a place of choice, not need. From a place of fullness, not emptiness. From a place of consciousness, not performance. This is the gift of solitude. Not loneliness, but wholeness. Not isolation, but integration. Not running away, but coming home to yourself. So if you find you cannot be around too many people anymore, if crowds drain you, if social gatherings feel like torture, if you would rather spend Saturday night alone than at a party, do not think something is wrong with you. You are simply waking up. And wakefulness requires space. It requires quiet. It requires solitude. Give yourself that space. Without guilt, without apology, without explanation. You do not owe anyone your presence if that presence requires you to betray yourself. You do not owe anyone your energy if that energy is being used to maintain unconsciousness. You do not owe anyone your performance if performing means killing your authenticity. Be alone. Be with yourself. Discover what that monk discovered, that in solitude you are never alone, because you finally have the one companion who will be with you for your entire life. Yourself. And that companion, when you really get to know them, is far more interesting, far more nourishing, far more real than any crowd of unconscious people performing their roles. This is not the end. This is the beginning of genuine consciousness in a world that desperately needs it. But that consciousness must be developed in solitude before it can be shared in community. So withdraw if you must, Be alone if you need to. Trust that your soul knows what it is doing. It is not isolating you. It is protecting the most precious thing you have. Your consciousness, your awareness, your authentic self. And one day when you have done this work, when you have really found yourself in the silence, you may choose to return to the world. But you will return differently. Not as someone who needs the crowd, but as someone who has something real to offer. Not as someone performing a role, but as someone living authentically. Not as someone lost in the noise, but as someone who has learned to hear the music beneath all the static. And that is worth every moment of solitude, every hour of quiet, every day spent alone. Because you are not losing anything by withdrawing. You are gaining everything. You are gaining yourself. And once you have that, no crowd, no matter how large, can ever make you feel alone again.